Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the UBC Learning Circle. Beyond excited to be here today with ISPARC, the FNHA, and the BC Sports Hall of Fame to continue our series on Indigenous sport and well-being. Joining us in circle today are Stephanie Nelson, Melanie Angus, Bernice Jensen, and Justin Kelly. Moderated by Jordie Johnson, this third session of our four-part series will feature inspirational role models from First Nations communities who use sports and physical activity to empower themselves and others. So before I get into anything else, I would like to acknowledge that I'm zooming in from the traditional and ancestral territories of the Comox First Nation. I would also like to acknowledge the First Nations Health Authority for generously funding the UBC Learning Circle. Gentle reminder here today that the topics we cover can sometimes be sensitive or emotionally triggering. Please make sure you're looking after yourself. If at any point you feel that you need to talk to a friend or an elder, counselor, or a family member, please don't hesitate to do so. Brief introductions. My name is Cole. I'm from the Cheltham First Nation. Sharing our digital space today, but off camera, is Cynthia, our production coordinator. And before I hand the mic over to Jordy to introduce himself and get the rest of the panel started, I would like to say that if you feel so inclined, please introduce yourself in the chat box and we'll get that conversation rolling. So without further ado, Jordy, do you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you. So wake and awake my question, lot to sit, so who make one scuss. Escaram to squat and zine. Good day, everyone. My name is Jordie Johnson. I carry the traditional name Sahumet. I'm part of the Escaram First Nations, which is part of the Shuswap tribe. So I'm joining you virtually by Zoom here at Huehue, which is part of the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. So thank you, Cole, for providing us the space and the wonderful opening words and housekeeping. In addition, thank you to Cynthia for your work behind the virtual curtains. Thank you to our friends at ISPARC for connecting us with some great panelists to share their stories on how sports and recreational activities empower themselves and others. I'm the Wellness Initiative Specialist at the First Nations Health Authority. Today, I am the moderator and I'm here to listen and I'm here to be inspired by our guests. So without further ado, let's start with a quick round of introductions. So we're going to start with the brave young man from the Fraser Valley, Justin Kelly.
Israel, Sawels, Telsqui, Talitsaquah, Shwahamo. My name is Sawels. That's my ancestral name given to me by my grandfather. It comes from my great-great-great-great-grandfather, who was the last hereditary chief of Seabird Island Band in the Fraser Valley. And yeah, I go by Justin Kelly. I'm the Community Wellness Coordinator for Shwamo First Nation. And yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Justin. So let's connect with our friend from the island, Stephanie Nelson.
Nugo Mahwa, Skyland Lach, Awakening Blue, Ahwamis. Yes, I'm really honored to be here. My name is Stephanie. My Bokwam name is Mahwa, which means pot-watching woman. And I got that up in Rivers Inlet, and it's the female version of my grandfather's name. So I'm originally from Rivers Inlet and Wakeman Sound. And I reside here in Port Hardy. Yeah, I'm a proud mom of 23-year-old Jaden and my 18-year-old Dominic. They are my reasons for living, and in our culture, Gwala'yu means our reason for living. And yeah, so currently I'm the manager at a wonderful organization, North Island Building Blocks, which really allows us to promote wellness, which I'm really grateful for. I've been an ISPARC leader and participant for approximately 10 years, and I just adore all the work that they do. And yeah, they're just a beautiful, beautiful family that does, yeah, amazing work around BC. And I don't think I would actually be where I'm at without their encouragement and leadership that's really helped me throughout my growth. Yeah, I'm really honored to be here. Gilakasla.
Kelakasla. So we'll let Bernice settle in for a moment here, and we're going to go up to the north. So let's move over to Melanie Angus.
Amahilus. Good morning. My name is Melanie Angus. Asilo Hawaii Laksale Pategi Wilpswe Minosik. Amelia Gunt James Angus Naditi Gunt Yae. Margaret Gunt Sam Dennis Naditi Gunt Yae Witsudan. I'm zooming in from about 17-hour drive north of the Lower Mainland. If you've never been up this way, it's very beautiful. And my traditional name is Asilo. It means a frog jumping over a pond. And I'm glad to be here today. I'm a mother of two, and I welcome everybody here. And thank you for the opportunity. Amia.
Thank you, Melanie. All right, so we are going to move over to the interior where we have Bernice Jensen. Bernice.
White Kwakwai Tip in Sama Stevens Quest, Bernice Jensen, Cooksjachumk. Hello, everyone. My name is Bernice Jensen. I work at the Kamloops Aboriginal Friendship Society, and I work in partnership with School District 73. I'm a cultural education coordinator, and I go to all the schools in the Kamloops and surrounding areas. So Cooksjam, thank you, Jordie and the team for inviting me to come and be part of this day. I'm really honored. And so I'm excited to come and share what I've been doing. So Cooksjam, thank you.
Cooksjam. And to our guests online, if you want to introduce yourselves, there's a chat box feature there. So just let us know who you are and where you're coming from. That'd be great. So we are going to move into our storytelling session. So each of our panel members will share their athletic journey. So we are going to follow similar to the order of our introductions. So as you listen to each story, you will learn that everyone is a wellness champion and that each story is different and unique to the person and or their community. So just a little introduction of my own wellness journey for myself. I grew up on the res and was fortunate enough to have two uncles that pushed me into hockey, soccer, and softball, being my uncles Basil and my uncle Philip. My sports journey had a 10-year break when I became a young adult. However, 4 years ago, two of my friends, Brent Tom and Dustin Moyes, encouraged me to rejoin the sports world. So I joined soccer and softball. Having family and friends being motivators are very important, especially when you grow up on the res. So if you have the opportunity to be the motivator or mentor to someone else, I hope you do so. But that's enough about me. Let's get to these wonderful panelists of Wellness Warriors. Let's start off with Justin Kelly.
Thank you, Jordie. So my story is not really personal. It's more of a community-based story. In 2017, we started a community softball team that varied in ages. So we had the youngest we could have out on the field was, I think, 14. So we had 14 all the way up into their 60s even. So big, broad range. And softball was a big deal in the previous generations in our community. So we decided to give it a shot, and we had plenty of interest. I mean, I remember back in 2017, a lot of our current players had never picked up a bat before, and they've never, swung a bat or thrown a softball. So We were out on the field 4 or 5 times a week just because we loved being around each other, and we loved seeing people grow and sort of realize their potentials. So we made it official, and we entered a co-ed league in the Fraser Valley. And I'm not gonna lie, we lost a lot of games, but just to see that little glimmer of excitement, you know, when you hit the ball and you hit it over somebody's head and you like slid into second base, or you know, made it past home plate, just that excitement and that expression is indescribable, is amazing to see. And yeah, we built on that, and we entered a men's league, I think in 2019. And again, like, very inexperienced team, is a really mixed batch of experience levels. And it was really cool to see the older, more experienced veterans really coach and provide guidance to our young ones, and just that little bonding experience. And it sort of became more than just softball, because then we started to want to hang around each other more, or, you know, go over to so-and-so's for dinner, and it just really built a bond. And it's even really cool to see our elders who previously coached our community teams. They actually came out and supported us. We actually got them jerseys that said cheerleader number 1, cheerleader number 2. And yeah, they were there for every game, rain or shine, windy, what have you. We even ended up bringing out a little portable propane fireplaces to keep them warm, because that's how dedicated they were. That's how much they loved to see, you know, their sons and grandsons and granddaughters, nieces, nephews out on the field playing the sport that they held close to their heart. So yeah, we're still going strong. Luckily, with COVID restrictions easing in our province, we were able to enter another co-ed league this year, and men's league this year as well. So yeah, that's our community team in Schwahamel. I should have mentioned the team name is Squawetch, which means sturgeon in our language. So if you're not familiar with Schwahamel First Nation, the sturgeon, the fish, is really, really important to us. It's actually one of our ancestors who's transformed into the sturgeon. So we thought, what better way to acknowledge, you know, our ancestor than to name our team after them. So yeah, that's about all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Justin. Would you like to give a shout out to those cheerleaders, numbers 1 and 2, and whoever else may be out there?
Definitely, yes, I would love to. Cheerleader number 1 is Audrey Kelly, my grand auntie, so that's my grandfather's sister. And cheerleader number 2 is Roger Andrews, her husband, who's my granduncle, of course. And yeah, I should have clarified that we have way more than just those 2 that, you know, that are dedicated to coming out and watching. We have, it's become really a community event. We play, you know, 2 to 3 times a week, and we have, our community comes out, our parents come out, our kids come out, my kids come out, and they mingle, you know, with their little cousins. And it's really just become a big community unifying experience.
Definitely. So where do you guys play?
So we practice in Hope, and we play in co-ed league in Agassiz, and in men's league we play in Chilliwack. So we sort of all over the place. So we love ball, so we travel wherever we need to. We've traveled to First Nations and non-First Nations tournaments as well, all the way from Surrey at Softball City, all the way up to Kamloops at Tournament Capital Ranch. And I think this year, as long as restrictions continue being eased, we're going to travel farther this year.
Nice. Do you have any tournaments coming up soon?
Actually, there is a tournament in Kamloops the last weekend of July that we're just registered for. and we have a couple in Surrey. So yeah, we're going to be busy in this next little while.
For sure. So with, because I know in my communities, for example, we like to do little fundraisers as a way to support each other. Does that happen within your community?
Great question. Yeah, we actually have our nation, like this has been such a unifying experience that our administration has recognized that the bonding and the physical activity and such that comes along with a softball team. So they were gracious enough to sponsor us for our leagues and for our tournaments. We also have a construction company that sponsors and buys us jerseys. So all that they ask is that we fundraise to sort of pay the money back. So yeah, we do several fundraisers, bottle drives, bake sales, Indian taco sales even. And yeah, we actually have a fundraiser coming up in a couple of weeks here for a catering job. So we definitely make sure that the team earns it, so to speak.
For sure. So how large is the res that you're coming from?
There's about 45 houses in Schwahamel, and I believe we're at about 100 members living on reserve. A couple 200 members in total. But yeah, it's about half and half on reserve, half off reserve.
Oh, nice. So where do you guys practice?
We used to practice right here in Schwahamel. We had an old sort of rundown dugout. You know, it totally sounds res because it was, but we're actually putting our brand new administration building and community health center in where that field was. So we have no choice but to move to Hope to practice. But I will share that in roughly a year, we'll have 2 state-of-the-art softball fields in Schwahamel, along with 2 soccer fields. So we can definitely utilize our land more, and you know, maybe next year we'll be hosting our own tournaments.
Awesome. Well, that sounds great. So if anybody has any questions for Justin, just a reminder, you can share them in the chat box. So we'll come around for some more questions. But let's move on to our next storyteller, and I believe that's Stephanie.
Yeah, so I grew up here in Port Hardy and lived on all 3 reserves. Definitely a trauma survivor, and also come from a long line of just resiliency amongst our people. I think of my grandfather and my great-grandfather. They started the Wolves up in Kinkham, and soccer is definitely part of our culture. So I often think of what my great-grandfather told my grandfather before he went to residential school and after, and that is mind over matter. And so I definitely believe in that philosophy. So when I was younger, I always just went for runs. It was such a release. In track and field, I just loved. We moved up to Kamloops for a blink, and I was second in BC for the 100-meter and sprint, and my coach told me not to go play soccer, and I played soccer, and I had a knee injury, so I had 3 knee surgeries, and that was awful. That was almost like grieving that I couldn't. You told me I wouldn't be able to play sports again, but I definitely stayed on that wellness journey of still finding ways to work out. I was a young mom, and I had my son when I just turned 20, and again, just was always walking, just finding other outlets just to really, release those endorphins. I think a lot of people really focus on their the physical health, but I really definitely strive in that wellness journey. The word in Kwakwala is sanala, so really to be whole. So I really work out for my mental health, and just I think the wellness journey is just surrounding myself by positive people and culture and cleansing and that wellness journey. Um, so then what ended up happening was ISPARC came into my life. Like I said, I was a participant for a while, and it was here in Port Hardy, and there was a beautiful non-Aboriginal lady running the program, and yeah, so we really kind of collaborated, and she kind of wanted me to take the lead, and so I started from there, and it ended up again just applying that Sanala approach about that community wellness. So bringing in what the community wanted. So some culture, right? We did, and we do an annual Walk for Hope, really raising awareness around suicide. Suicide, like many of our communities, has just really affected, affected our communities. So yeah, and then from there, I think it's really allowed me. I've brought in dragon boating, so that leadership kind of, it ended up being a ripple effect for me. So I've paddled on teams here in Port Hardy, but I've also became a coach. So we developed a co-ed team, first co-ed team, and the name was Namoxala, so paddling as one. And that was, yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I guess like since then, ISPARC has got me to sign up for Fit Nation leadership. So I've offered that in the community in different senses, at the school and girls groups, and also within my the organization I work for. That's been really beautiful. And I've just completed a trauma-informed yoga course through the First Nations, well, through Jessica Borden. There's a partnership between Cedar of Gold and Yoga Outreach. And I find that has also completed and really helped with my healing journey and my wellness. So just allowing me to just be a little more comfortable in my skin, and a lot more calm, a lot more calm. So that feels, yeah, that feels really good. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else. I love to hike. That's really helped with my wellness journey. I've done the Kusum climb. I didn't know what I was signing up for. It's a mountain outside of Sayward, and it was like, yeah, 5.5 hours. Some people it took like 9-10 hours to complete. It took 5.5 hours. It's pretty intense. 3.5 hours up, and then we got to the top, and it was all snow, and I was like, now what? And then we got down the snow, and it was like 17 kilometers of jogging. I worked in the schools district for a long time, and we really strive to have our kids, that connection to land is really, really key, and language. And I was lucky enough with one of my main role models and mentors as well, William Wasden Jr. We and my son and one of my best friends, Leah, we climbed over the Grease Trail, ancient trail, and that took us 2 nights and 3 days. And we were scaling mountains. It was washed over, so then we just had a little extra night and 2 days. So that was a adventure. So we decided then maybe not to take our students. It was a little bit too much. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah, I really believe in Dr. Yellowbird's philosophy, and just really around through things like mindfulness and simple things like our running and walking and laughing and our sacred ceremonies, we could change those negative pathways into those positive pathways. And I know if I've scored a 10 out of on the adverse childhood experiences, and if I could make it, I know anybody could. Yeah, I really do. I believe in that 110%.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's great to hear about the land-based healing and reconnecting with the land. That's always very important. And of course, that 2-night, 3-day trip sounds, well, it sounds adventurous.
It's intense.
All right, we do have a question. If you want to share a little more about the trauma-informed yoga course, we have Courtney who's asked for a little more details on that. So would you like to share a little bit on what that is and where they can find more information?
Okay, it was a beautiful pilot project. And we've just come to the end. Right after this, I actually have our interview with Jessica Borden, and she's doing her doctorate. And it was really through a partnership with Cedar of Gold, I guess her organization, and Yoga Outreach. And so there'll be, we're hoping, because it was such a success, that so it was a 80-hour course, Friday nights and Sunday mornings. And it was through a Kwak lens, which was really, really beautiful. So it was really focused on colonization, on beautiful resources that came out of it that we were able to use for our own growth, but I was able then really to use those resources within my workforce so that was really beautiful. And it's really that practice of like I said, just being comfortable in our own skin. This is the first time in my life that I feel I've been able to do that and calm my brain, and a lot of beautiful deep breathing exercises. And so the hope is, through that pilot project, I believe, is that this could continue. And it was focused on women. So we covered a lot of that historical traumas, and really trying to use trauma-informed yoga just to really heal our communities, but it starts with ourselves for sure.
Thank you, Stephanie. And for those on the line, please know that Stephanie will be closing us out later today with some drumming and some singing. So stay tuned for that. We are going to move over to our friend Bernice.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm really honored to be part of the panel today. I'm excited. I had a lot to think about my whole journey in life, because sports has been a big part of it. Growing up on a reserve, on the Okanagan Indian Reserve, there wasn't a lot to do. And when you're a young person, there's not a lot of sports for young people. So I came from a family of 7 with my mom and my dad, and my dad worked out of town most of the time. My mom was stayed at home to raise the kids. And so with 6 sisters, I think she was really worried about us, that we might get into trouble, and and that we were going to go down the wrong road. And so she kept us busy. She let us play all the sports that we wanted in school. And so I did every sport in elementary school. I was on every team that we had in our elementary school, and we played in tournaments and traveled around, and I loved it. And my sisters and I did the same thing. So we were all playing sports, even though my mom and dad didn't do any sports at all. She encouraged us to do sports. And I remember going to a track and field. I was even on track and field for running, and I'm only 5'2". And so we were doing the cross country track, and I think I was like second to last. And there I am running, and I'm so tired, and my mom and them are cheering me on. Well, I dropped to last place, and after that, she never said nothing. She never got mad. She, she encouraged me and said, "Good job." And and I realized after that moment, I was not a track and field runner. So, needless to say, I never did running again. But I did do a lot of team sports. So I love the team sports because they're competitive. You get to interact with a lot of the other kids that you normally may not interact with. I remember doing a lot of sports and making a lot of friendships from a lot of the people that I played ball with. And lacrosse, I played fastball, slow pitch. I started hockey in high school, so I played ladies hockey. I started to play on the native basketball team. As I got older, there was a little bit more for the teenagers, so I played on a couple of ball teams. I played, and I loved ball, and I was pretty good at it. So I played ladies fast pitch by grade 7, and I got recruited for the ladies teams. And back in the day, age wasn't a factor. So there I was in elementary school playing women's ball, and I played on the Vernon Falcons, the Blue Stars, Okanagan Connect, played on quite a few different ball teams just for ladies fast pitch. I started on the Falcons basketball team as well, but once again, height is a factor. 5'2", it's not that good, but I tried it, and I got to travel around BC and Alberta for that as well. With the hockey, they decided they were going to try and do a women's hockey team, so I joined that, of course, because I loved playing any sport. And so at the time I had to borrow hockey equipment from a friend of mine from town, and I played ladies hockey. So, my mom was really good. She would let us go and do the sports, pay for all the fees and registration that was required. She would take us to the games, but also sometimes, because we had been playing in sports for quite a while, we started to make friends so that we could travel with people. I remember our coach, Matthew Bono from the Okanagan. He always had a carload of kids, like kid travel. We would be playing out in Oliver for a native fast pitch tournament, and he would have a carload of kids, or we'd be going teenagers, or we'd be going to Williams Lake and all over the place playing native fastball. And so that was my life in my while I was still going to school. After high school, things changed, and I moved, and I was in the Kamloops area, barrier area, and I started playing a lot of slow pitch, because slow pitch came into it was a new sport that people were starting to play, and we started playing slow pitch. And being a fast pitch pitcher or player, it was an easy transition. And so I started playing slow pitch, and we traveled again all over the interior, playing in slow pitch tournaments. We had fantastic in Vernon that we got to play in, and we made it to the provincials, where we went to Squamish to play in the provincials. I mean, we didn't place first, mind you, but it was an incredible experience to be able to play in a provincial slow pitch tournament. I played in the nationals for the fast pitch as well, so I got to do that and travel with that as well. But then I met my husband, and we started having children, and that changes a lot of things. I started to slow down. I moved to Chase, and I started playing slow pitch just on, Friday night league, and my children would come and watch me, well, because they were a little bit younger, and so they'd come and watch the games, and I'd play slow pitch. And I played ladies hockey. I picked up hockey again, and we had a team out in Chase called the Chase Storm. And so I started playing hockey, and I started playing slow pitch instead of fast pitch. And then when my last child was born, I was back on the ice again 1 month after he was born. playing hockey still. But then I started to realize my children were getting older, and I had the incredible experience of playing a lot of sports in my lifetime. So then I concentrated my energy on my children, and they started doing all the sports that they could get into, and gymnastics, they did ballet, they did hockey, ringette, soccer, baseball. I was, I bought a minivan. I started taking my kids around for their games and tournaments. This weekend, I'm actually going to a tournament with my daughter because she's U19 this year. So I've, I hung up my hockey skates and my cleats when my children started playing. But now my oldest is, my oldest is 21, and my next is 20, and I have a 18-year-old and a 14-year-old. So they're older now, and I started. We moved from. We were living in Vernon for a while, and they were playing ringette and all the sports there, Vernon minor fastball, and I was an assistant coach while I was out in Vernon because I was going to all the games. My children, I remember it was a funny story because I had three girls, and the oldest was just old enough to play with the U19, and they allowed my two younger girls to play with the U12 to play. They were supposed to be on Learn to Play, and they drafted them from the Learn to Play with the U12. So I had three girls on one team. I said, well, you know what? I said, they'll learn the game just like me. And so they got out there and they were playing ball. Then I started doing some assistant coaching. And then we moved to Kamloops, and I had the girls registered again for Kamloops minor fastball. And then I started doing some more assistant coaching, which I really love, because when you love the game, it's hard to not be involved. And so when I came to Kamloops, I started a slow pitch team of all Native women in the Kamloops area. I live on the Kamloops, the Secwepemc, and I wanted a team of women to get together again and play ball. And now we're playing with our daughters, though. We have some players that are, don't have children, but a lot of us have played ball, and we wanted our children to play ball. So now we have a team. It's called Babies Got Bats, and we've just started the league again since they've opened up things for us. So we're going to be playing ball, slow pitch with the Kamloops Slow Pitch Association. But for the Kamloops minor fastball, this year, my daughter, she's playing with U19, like I said, and I put my name in to be assistant coach because I thought, well, if I'm going there and I'm going to be watching the games and being on the sideline, I'll help assistant coach. Well, this year they didn't have a coach, and they asked me to be the U19 minor fastball coach. So I agreed to do that. So now I'm coaching the Kamloops minor fastball U19. So our first tournament is coming up in Kelowna this weekend. It's a little bit different, when you're the coach. When you're assistant coach, it's a lot easier. It's a little bit more relaxing. There's more responsibilities being the coach. And so now I'm coaching the ladies slow pitch as well as the U19 fastball. So we're doing that. But, I've been with the ISPARC as well for 10 years, I think 10 plus years. I'm not sure exactly how many years, but I started out with school district 83, I believe it was, Salmon Arm School District. And then I moved to Kamloops, and then I knew about it, so I brought it to the Kamloops School District. And now we have a bunch of people that apply for the ISPARC Honor Your Health. And so I focused on more cultural because I'm a cultural coordinator with the school district and the Friendship Center. We do a lot of things on the land. I love being on the land. In my personal time, and with my work, we hunt, we fish, ice fish, digging roots. One of the first times I ever dug Spitzen, I believe it's Speetlum, which is wild bitterroot. It was such an honor, like I felt like our ancestors were there with us on the land, and there I was with my young children, and we were with some community, and they were taking us out for the very first time. And I thought, I really, because of residential school, my parents didn't teach us about the culture. We did the sports. And I think it was their way of trying to protect us because of their own experience with the residential schools. So I didn't learn a lot about being First Nations or culture. So then as an adult, when I had my children, I started doing more land-based stuff, like the hunting, the fishing, the picking roots and berries. My husband wanted me to learn how to hunt, and so he gifted me a rifle for Christmas, and I go hunting with him now. My children are avid hunters, elk hunting and going for moose and stuff like that. So they hunt, and we go fishing. My daughter just loves fishing, so I think it's really good that when they can connect to the land and learn about all those things. We've always been involved in the community, with the Silks Unity runs that the kids have done before. I was a driver and a drummer. We are involved with the Secwepemc hunting camp and the Okanagan hunting camp. We've done the canoe journey for several years on the West Coast with the Kamloops canoe family. In my office here, I take out the elders and we do birch bark harvesting and gathering, root digging, that kind of stuff, sage picking. It's, you think you're just doing it and it's culture, but there's a lot of physical, the activity that's involved in doing those things, to be able to go out and harvest the birch bark and be packing things up and unpacking and taking our elders, and you're taking care of the elders in a good way as well. So you're feeding them, making sure they're getting the water and all of that. So my kind of like my shift has changed. I'm still playing ball, but I'm trying to do more cultural things as well. And I just love what I do. I always keep in mind of the medicine wheel, the physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental. And I always try to think, like I'm trying to keep everything well balanced. I've been part of the Secwepemc apprentice mentorship program where we've done some on the land stuff there as well. I love what I do. And like I said, if I wasn't a cultural education coordinator with the Friendship Center, I would be doing it anyways. I'd be still doing those things, getting out on the land. I mean, I do it when I get home. Here I am doing these things at my work, and I'm so blessed to be able to go to work and do these things. And then at home, there I am doing it again. I'm still going out there and doing all those things that I love to do and get to do with friends and family. So I thank you guys for allowing me to be here. If anyone has any questions about learning how to do those things, I'm always open. I've had some amazing mentors that have taught me about traditional medicine plants, which is a new focus for me. I've been learning for 5 years from some amazing mentors in the Secwepemc Nation, Rona Bowie, June Kelly. There's a lady from the West Coast, Dr. Jeannie Paul, that I follow. And so I'm learning about the traditional medicines as well. So, I think to be able to be a wellness champion, you have to almost have all those things. Your physical is really important, your mental is important, your spiritual and your emotional. So you always have to do those checks to make sure that you are giving it 100% for yourself. Before I always say, before you can give to others, you have to help yourself, because if you're not in a good place or a good frame of mind, it's hard to help others when you're dealing with things yourself. So if you can keep yourself well balanced, then it's easy to help others to do those things that they need to do as well. So Cook's Jam, thank you so much.
Cook's Jam, Bernice. And yes, giving 100% to yourself, very important. And those interconnectedness between the four being, of course, spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional. So thank you for sharing that and bringing up some great points. So we'll come back around to you with some questions. But before we do, let's move over and hear the stories from Melanie Angus.
Hi again. I was trying to think, what can I share in 10 minutes that might be helpful to people or inspire one person or to share and celebrate, you know, all of us everywhere. And I was thinking of myself as a young child. I loved to run. Everywhere, lunchtime, bus out from school, I'd sprint. And over time, stuff stopped me from doing that. And Bernice touched a little bit about on the mental wellness piece. When you think of the sad statistics about our people, our Indigenous people, you know, many of us have had those affect our lives in big ways, and we've had to overcome a lot to be here today, to be here speaking, to use our voice, to keep shining and sharing our gifts with the world. And I remember being 19, and I just thought, there has to be something better. I can't continue in my addictions. I can't keep laying on the ground in the puddle. I just can't do it. And what would happen if I decided to do something different? And one of the wake-up calls I had was sitting there with a doctor. I'd gone to a treatment center, which was a pinnacle point in me rediscovering or reconnecting to Mother Earth and Sweat Lodge. And, you know, like I think of different points of help out there. Well, this one, you climb practically naked and lay on the earth and get real, know who you are, be honest with yourself, speak the truth. And it shifted so much in me. And while we were there, we were like we just had to take part in everything. So I had to learn how to do aerobics. I'd never done aerobics in my life. I just seen, you know, like the skinny women with the big hair and the leotards, and there I was bouncing around. And one of the thoughts I've always had is, who do you think you are? And I did it anyway. So now I know how to do aerobics, and I'm actually good at it. I love it. I've always had fun with it. They also brought us out bowling, you know, that taught me how to have fun without alcohol, without drugs, without addictions to lean on. And at that point, the doctor had said, you're heading to being a diabetic. And I remember crying and crying. You know, I was 19. I didn't know what diabetes was. And I thought, I'm going to lose my foot and I'm going to go blind and my life is over. I really, truly believed I'm going to die. Like this, I don't have much time left. You know, like in my mind, it was so huge because I didn't know, right? And through that, I started learning more about food, about movement. I'm not an athlete, like a competitive athlete. I've played basketball as a teenager a little bit, but you know, I wasn't all that great, and I don't have that same drive where I'm competitive. Some people, they're born and meant to do competitive sports. I think for me, it's about fun. It's about connection and being here for my kids. And I've always learned from that and held on to that. And I was thinking, what else do I share here? I think of being lucky because I've always had my parents behind me. You know, our families are huge as Indigenous people, and my parents, I believe, were pinnacle in me being alive today, and the ripple effects that have come on to their grandchildren today. They always shoved us out the door to take part in new experiences, and a lot of those times I was the only Indigenous person taking part in wellness things, or learning about youth leadership, or going to conferences, being representative. And like I said, the same thought, who do you think you are? And doing it anyway. So there is fear, there is doubt, wondering, you know, how am I being as a representative of Indigenous people? It's a lot of pressure at times. Growing up, you know, in my 20s and exploring the world, we did a lot of traveling, my sister and I, and learned that everybody is a human being, and we all have gifts. So I remember I decided to learn how to run again, remembering that child in me, and started walking. I found a Learn to Run program pamphlet, so I started with that, and it was very hard. I remember my younger brother, he'd come running with me, and he'd run circles. He'd literally run around me while I was jogging and kind of laugh at me, but it's one of my best memories of him. And I remember running through the winter. And then I heard of, it wasn't called ISPARC at the time, back in 2008, and I applied to be a leader within that for the walk run program. And I remember going to the conference, and there was so many people from everywhere all over the province, and crying. I was just standing there crying away because I was seeing like packs of people all running and being cold and triumphing, and it's people from all walks of life, all shapes and sizes. And I didn't know all these people were on a similar journey that I was deciding to do. And since then, you know, like I've done the Fit Nation, I've done the Honor Your Health, and I did things like cooking programs for health, rediscovery, which is getting back on the land. We canoed from Kispiox, my homelands, over to Rupert, which has a lot of history in terms of the Grease Trail and our families and connections on the coast. Was a lot of healing for people, you know. So gathering, giving time, being together, doing these things together was really, really empowering. And if I were to share a few messages just to close, I would say to anybody that you can do it. There is no wrong way, and perfection doesn't exist. When you do the small steps, they lead up to a lifestyle, is what I've figured out. And the gift is yourself, our mind, our body, our spirit. Like if I were to look on the laying in the puddle image. At that time, my statement to myself was, I am nothing. And then to transform and do all of these things and keep walking through all those walls to get to today, and I'm almost 50 years old. I just really want to celebrate, like every single person who's chosen life. We've all decided to do that, to be here. So you want to hear my statement today? It's, I am beautiful, authentic, and shining. And, I have a dream to be Tzitz someday, a grandmother, and I can feel the ancestors behind us. I've shared openly when we've done holistic wellness model workshops in this past year, again, connected to ISPARC. Around, we each come with 50 ancestors behind us easily. That's just a raindrop of who we're connected to and where our strength comes from, and all of our resilience and all of our connection. It's unending and it's so beautiful. And we can lean on the land, and we can keep grabbing onto the strengths and the gifts from the medicines, from the plants, from our hearts, from our instincts, listening to our voice. And for me, it started from, there has to be something better, and you better believe there's something better, because it's culture. That was the better for me. It was culture and celebration of life, and that's each day. It's these moments, like I spent 10 minutes talking, and if I help one person, then I'm happy with that, because we all matter, and we're all deserving, and you matter, you matter, you matter, you matter. Every person that listens to this and watches this and hears our voices, your voice matters, and your gifts that you share with the world are important, and you're here for a reason. If your heart's beating, woo, So I think I will close there with thanks for everybody who's listened, and thanks to the ancestors, to the land that holds us, and for truth. I think I just want to celebrate truth, because when we're honest, we're our own self, and that's most helpful, I think.
Thank you, Melanie. And yes, you are beautiful, you are authentic, and you are shining. So thank you for sharing your story. Very powerful words were shared there, and very touching to the heart. All right, so after a little deep breath there, thank you. Thank you to our panel for sharing their stories. Yes, shake that out. So we are going to move into some questions. So we'll go back to the way we started our circle here. So we're going to move over to Justin. I'm just wondering if you could share a little more on the intergenerational connection that sports or that softball has had on your community, because you mentioned that there's teenagers, there's elders, there's everyone within the community. So I'm wondering if you want to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have, just as an example, the old coach is my granduncle, number one cheerleader, number two cheerleader, sorry. And his children, so my aunties and uncles played with him previously, and now they're a part of our community team. where they play with their kids and or nieces and nephews. So yeah, there's at least 3 generations involved with Squawatch actually being on the field, and then we have, you know, further generations below being around the field and in that environment where they can see, hey, softball looks fun, I want to try. And we even after we practice, we bring all the kids out and we let them swing their bats or what have you. And, you know, on the last pitch, we make them run the bases, and, you know, we make a game of it. And yeah, so at least 3 generations, 4 generations around the field.
That's awesome. Thank you, Justin. So Stephanie, earlier you mentioned from, I believe it's your great-grandfather or your grandfather, talking about mind over matter. And that was one of the things he used to share. So can you share a little bit more on that?
Yes, more around that philosophy of, I believe, like, we have just the way we have intergenerational effects of trauma, we also have DNA resiliency. And I believe that ancestral knowledge is trivial to our strength, and that wisdom that our ancestors have with everything that our people with colonization have gone through, especially having our, you know, our grandparents and our parents taken away to residential school. And a mind over matter, we could get through anything. And I think it was my those teachings of instilling that. And my grandfather just had his 90th birthday, and he's one of my biggest role models. And I should have mentioned, if it was not for my grandmother taking me in and her beautiful teachings, Dr. Bruce Perry says we just need one person to help us through. And yes, I really think it's around that. And I often, use that within my daily practice.
Thank you, Stephanie. Wonderful words. I think this one I'm going to put to both Bernice and Melanie, because it does connect back with girls and sports. So this is from Pete Natral. He mentions, challenges I see within our Indigenous youth girls is that they want to play sports, and it's common that there isn't enough girls to form a team, and they end up playing with a boys team, and gets to a point where the age and gender become a challenge to keep girls inclusive. Any suggestions to keep inclusive or engaged in team sports? So I will put that to both Bernice and Melanie. If you have any thoughts on that, that'd be great.
Okay, so I've done a lot of sports with my children and even with myself. And one of the things that, you know, that you can do in your community is do a lot of, like, learn to play sports so that you get them involved earlier. And so some of the ones that are in the sports, I think sometimes there's economical issues, vehicles, transportation, funds that play a factor as well. And, if they can join a team, get a girls team going, sometimes it's the finances, so do some fundraising. Sometimes it's carpooling so that the kids can get to the games, because sometimes the parents are working late. It's having a buddy system as well. Because I know that when you're playing when you're a female playing on a boys team, eventually, like you said, the boys get a little rougher, or they get a little meaner, or they think that, she wants to play with the guys, we're going to give her the same medicine, right? And it gets a little bit rough. And, I've seen, I've been to my nephew's lacrosse tournament, and one of the females were on the team, and they roughed her up, and she ended up with a broken arm. And so you really have to be careful, right? And know when to say no. Like, I mean, sometimes if it's too rough for the girls, because they're smaller, they're lighter, these guys get bigger. it becomes a risk factor. So, you know, safety is so important. And, you know, just seeing how these guys, the testosterone gets, you know, gets them going sometimes, you have to almost say, well, you know what? I've seen girls go from playing baseball even, and then switching to a female team because of that as well. So you always have to gauge whether it's safe for them. And if there's any risks, then you know what, sometimes you got to back out. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernice. Melanie, do you have anything to add to that one?
Well, my daughter is 16 and she is a competitive athlete and plays any sport that she can get her hands on. And it makes me think of the times when there hasn't been opportunity for her as a girl. Like we've attached her to women's teams, so women's hockey, even though she's probably the youngest player on the team, then she can be mentored from people who've played for, you know, years. She's learned a lot that way. We've done that with basketball team also. She's been the youngest player on that team. And I think, you know, like the sources of funding, like Jumpstart came to mind, and sometimes youth might be eligible for something like Jordan's Principle funding that includes those 4, you know, medicine wheel streams with their funding to see if there's anything available with that. Unfortunately, some families have moved away for opportunities. I say unfortunate because it's sad, you know, like there's a lot of tears when a family decides to leave our community and move 17-hour drive away. But people do it for their kids, so they focus on their kids' goals and build skills. So for my daughter, she's done the online hope and health soccer drills, you know, through the pandemic. Shifting to the pandemic, there's been a lot of online stuff. So we've connected her that way to other athletes, clear the living room, give her the space to work out where none of us are sitting there watching her playing our game or whatever, you know, like, so doing those kind of things. Yeah. And then ISPARC also has the learn to do different sports. So it makes me think of like their fastball. If you have one person who will volunteer their time and learn how to do the coaching, or maybe they're a past player, like fastball used to be really big with our women around here before, and now not so much. But there's one group in one community. They opened it up to all 8 of our communities and gathered as one group. And even if they get to go to one tournament and we have to travel 4 hours or more, they make it happen. So really leaning on the past players, because athletes are passionate, and it's really cool to see what can happen from a small group of people.
Awesome. Thank you, Melanie. And just so people know, ISPARC is Indigenous Sports Physical Activity and Recreation Council. They can be found at isparc.ca. So if you want more information on any of the programs that have been discussed, I'm more than welcome you to check that out. All right, so I believe we have a question for Justin. Give me one quick second here. So this is a question for Justin. It's from Layla Lally. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. So how do you deal with families, brackets adults, that may have an animosity towards each other? How do you get them to get along within community? Thanks.
That's a tough one. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of weird telling people that are older than me what to do. But I have come across that, and I basically reminded them why we're here, is for our love of the game. And I reminded them that their children and nieces and nephews are watching them, so to hold themselves accountable and to be the positive role model.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. All right, so I'm going to move into a question for everyone. And just a reminder for those, if you do have a question for anybody, please feel free to put them in the chat. So moving on to the next question, it's going to be for everyone. We will start with Stephanie, so get yourself prepared. This one is, I'm sure that there have been many people that have looked up to you in your lives. Can you chat a little about your own personal role models within community or on the res?
Yeah, my own personal role models. I have so many. I really think it's important that we have those goals and role models in life. And I think that I go back to my grandmother in her beautiful humbleness and her generosity and her unconditional love. I feel like that just allowed me to just always feel safe. My Auntie Margaret, she took me in, and I love that she's still dragging boats and she does yoga and at her lunch hours, and she's just also just has my grandfather has really instilled some beautiful work ethic in our family, and I'm really grateful for those teachings. Sherry Humchit, she is a pillar in our Quagos community, and I love, she's also part of the ISPARC family and does the run walk program, and I definitely, she inspires me, her knowledge. So I agree with like kind of what Melanie was saying about sometimes it's not necessarily like the athletes or even thinking ourselves as athletes, but that again, like that sanala, that we're being whole. So people that just create balance in their lives through kind of like what we're all saying, through that holistic model, and how important that is. And yeah, you guys have all been really inspiring today. So I have so many role models. My children, oh my gosh, I learn from my children. They inspire me.
Thank you, Stephanie. Bernice, you want to share a little bit about your role models?
Okay, so first and foremost, my family, my grandparents, my great-grandfather, they were very cultural. And even though I didn't get to I didn't learn much about my culture as a young person, I remember seeing bits and pieces. They drummed, they danced, they sang. My grandmother was in a book, and it's on the Okanagan and Colville plants, medicine plants. And I'm learning from that even still today. I read the book, and there's my great grandfather Joe Abel in there, and I'm still learning from them. And so my mentors, my cultural mentors, my past coaches, the things that they've done to help me where I am today, the knowledge keepers that share their knowledge with myself. I'm really thankful. I'm doing a lot of plants now, and I surround myself with people that know about the plants and I know about the culture, and I'm always, I gravitate towards them. I also drum and sing, and I remember at one time I came to one of my mentors and I asked him, how do I start drumming? I don't understand how to do this, right? I hadn't really picked up a drum, even though my grandparents and my great-grandfather and they all drum and sang. My parents didn't, because they went to residential school, and I didn't know how to go about doing this, because I really wanted in my heart to learn how to sing these songs. And I remember my one of my friends and mentors, Bruce Manuel, he said, Bernice, you don't wait for an invite. You pick up that drum and you go, and when people are gathering and they're going to sing songs, you get out there and you sing those songs. And And now, you know, I live in Kamloops, and, you know, because of the residential school and them finding the 215 kids, I'm out there every day. I haven't stopped since the news broke out. You know, we're drumming and singing for the, you know, the truck convoy, the biker convoy, the people that are coming in. We met with the people from the Squamish Nation. We were there to meet and greet them, because the band gets so busy. Sometimes, you know, people are just coming in randomly on weekends and everything like that, that our friendship center and my drum group, we get together and we sing songs, and we are, you know, kind of supporting them and thanking them, because Kamloops is the big hub right now, right? So, you know, I remember when I was trying to learn how to drum, my friend Bruce said, just get out there and start drumming and singing, right? You know, so I think my biggest mentors as well have been the elders, you know, because they are our knowledge keepers. They are our historians. They know the protocol. They do all of that. And, you know, and I guess my sports too, because it's a big part of who I am as a person. You know, I love playing sports. I love coaching sports. You know, I think for everything, you know, even my mom, you know, she wasn't a drinker. So when I turned 25, I quit drinking. It's been 32 years now. And I think my life would be so different had I continued with the alcohol. And so my life is so much more enriched. I'm a happier person, been married, you know, for 31 years. And we're so blessed to have our, you know, those people in our lives. And even my husband, his circle is my circle. We overlap. And I think that's what it's all about, right? You know, because we are moving in the same direction. We have the same role models. We live the same life. We're raising our children in a good way, and we're trying to teach them good things. So, you know, it's always good to surround yourself with positive people that are healthy and that are there to share their wisdom with you. And so, Cook's Jam, thank you.
Thank you, Bernice. Melanie, can you share a little bit about the role models in your life?
Well, I just want to give another shout out to my parents, their teachings. My dad experienced quite a lot of racism and going to day school, you know, jumped off the train when he was being taken off to residential school and was one of the ones that refused to go. And so I can hear his voice in my head whenever I'm doing things from throughout my life. And he's saying, you know, like, if you're going to do something, then do it, you know, which means do it well, do your best, show up and do your best. And if someone tells you you can't do something, well, that's just the wrong thing to say, because it means I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it more than you would expect, you know, like, so that drive and that determination and breaking the barriers and moving beyond that, those thoughts about our people, and rolls into my mom. She's always the kindest person I've ever known throughout her life. And one of her motivational songs is row, row, row your boat. It means you take the paddles, you move them, you do them gently down the stream. You be kind while you're doing that. Merrily, 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 you hang on to your happiness. Life is but a dream. So we're here to enjoy life and experience it, and do our work and ride that wave. So that's a snapshot. Of course, the grandmothers and the grandfathers always in my heart, mind, and spirit. So
Thank you, Melanie. I've never thought of row, row, row your boat in those terms. So changing my perspective on that song. All right, we're going to move over to Justin to hear about his role models.
Thanks, Jordy. I'm trying to count on my role models. I can't even on both hands. It's crazy. Like Stephanie said, her grandfather, I believe, is mind over matter. My grandfather is a residential school survivor. He, went through unspeakable traumas as we all are learning. And just to see him and his strength, I think he's 75 now, and he's still, going out and helping people, doing spiritual work, doing counseling, and being there for, other residential school survivors, on top of, still getting out on that river, setting the net and pulling the net and, cutting the fish and preserving the fish. And he honestly just threw me to the wolves, and he said, at gatherings, he started saying, get up and say something, speak. And, I can't tell my grandpa no. So that kind of really helped me, especially being, a kid or an adult to this day that never met their father. I'm so grateful for him. And as well as Stephanie said, mentioned her children, my children as well. I wanted to be a positive influence on their lives, a cultural person. So I picked up my drum as soon as, my daughter was born, about almost 9 years ago now. I've been fortunate enough to be hired to perform ceremonies and do ceremonies with my drum. And I've even started, I feel like my daughter's old enough now that I've started asking if I'm going to be hired, I would like to bring my daughter so that she can stand there with me and learn, the protocols of these ceremonies. So there's him, and then there's, the other elders in my communities, our number one, number two cheerleaders. They're big role models for me as well. They've helped me with our ball team and providing guidance and advice and assurance. And who else? A late friend of mine, who's a mentor of mine. He really taught me how to conduct myself in ceremony and as a cultural person. So I'd like to acknowledge Nelson Leon. And in regards to like fitness and health and wellness, the ISPARC team, I really appreciate them and all the teachings that they've shared with me. Jesse Toynbee, Robin Edgar, Daniel Craig, he's one of my bros. It's just amazing. That's an amazing team. So if you're ever able to get in on their Honor Your Health Challenge and Fit Nation and Indigenous Run Walk, those are, they reinvigorate me when we meet up. And luckily we get to meet up again in a couple of weeks, I think. So I'm very excited for that. That's a glimpse of just some of my role models. I'm grateful to have so many role models, but those are definitely my main few. Thanks.
Thank you, Justin. All right, we do have one question that's still outstanding. So I'm going to move to Bernice, and then we're going to do this question before we move into our closing remarks. And following our closing remarks, Stephanie will then share with us some drumming and singing. And that will, the time has just flew right by with these great stories. So Bernice, let's connect on this last question here, and it is, how have you overcome rural community sport development, especially coaches, training, official training, and athlete development? And that's from Pete Luttrell.
Okay, so what I know is that a lot of the times the bands can through grants can usually get some programs going. I know, I think it's ISPARC that does some coaching as well. You can be invited to have them do the coach clinics right in your community. And so like I've gone out and I've actually participated in some of the coach clinics as well. They even did they did some sports clinics, but they also did coach clinics as well. So I did participate in the coach clinics at that time. So that's why I wanted to be a coach. I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a kayak coach. So I did the kayak clinic coaching for that as well. So I wanted to be an instructor, but instructor for that. But there's also coaching clinics, which I've also participated in as well. So you can ask the bands to possibly be through the ISPARC, if you can use the fields, if you can set it up, even, if they don't want to, maybe you could be the person to be the go-between and have it brought to your community. People from other communities will come in and be able to kind of get some techniques on the sports. Or if you're going to be a coach, then they will, you can have, ask to use maybe the boardroom or somewhere where you can do the coaching clinic for that as well. So there's a lot of really good stuff out there. I know that with the bands, they get these things. So you've got to just kind of ask them what's happening and how you can access these free, and they're free too, these free clinics that are available.
Thank you, Bernice. All right, so we're going to do a quick lightning round of closing remarks from each of our panel. So we're going to start with Justin.
Let's see, closing remarks. It's hard to say what hasn't already been said. I definitely want to thank, UBC and FNHA for asking me to be a part of this panel. Happy to answer any questions. Feel free to share my email, whoever can. I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to see my children and my youth. I call the kids in my community my youth because, I watched them grow. Aside from the ball team, I run activities that touch base on each of the four mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional. So excited to get back to that now that COVID restrictions are lifting. That's all I can come up with in your lightning round, Jordie.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. All right, going to our friend from the island, Stephanie.
Very similar. I just feel like, thank you, UBC, First Nations Health Authority, and ISPARC. You guys are amazing, and all you guys here, your beautiful words, they're all just extremely inspiring, and really around this, through these hard times, as Indigenous people, that it is through things like this that we will hold each other up and build unity through community. And so thank you guys for all sharing. Very beautiful.
Thank you, Stephanie. Bernice, we could get some closing remarks from you as well.
Okay, so once again, thank you to UBC, FNHA, and and ISPARC for getting things going for me years ago, for doing these things that I do in the schools and in the community. It's kept me really active. People say I just go, and I do. I mean, I live for these moments where I'm just go, and going to the school, and I'm going home, and I'm coaching, and then I'm going to play ball and all that stuff. I just, I think if you can, invite a friend or have a friend come and join you for a game or come and, encourage players that are afraid to play. I'm always telling the players, like, you know, some of my friend, my daughter and them's friends, I said, come out and join us. I'll give you a ride, you know, try it out the sport, you know, you might like it, and, you know, or come and let's do some, you know, I'll put out on Facebook that we're going to be doing some, you know, some harvesting cedar or something. And so I always like to take people out and do things, get out, get active, be healthy, you know, be on the land. I think it's healing for us, and just, you know, keep going. You know, I'm 57 years old and I don't think I'm ready to slow down yet. So, you know, I'm just, I love what I do. Culture is a big part of it. The youth keep me young because I work in the schools, and just, you know, be that one person that's going to make a difference for someone else, right? So, Christian.
Good job, Bernice. All right, Melanie.
I'm very thankful to have been here today. Thank people for hearing our stories, for the organizing, as everybody has said already. Just want to give a shout out to the people in the background, and I mean that in all of our communities, working away, doing the steps that create so many opportunities for people who love sports, who love activity, who are creating the trails, who are having the walking groups, you know, like the connection that really does save lives. I've been told that from group participants. You got me through the winter. I'm like, no, you did. You showed up. You got yourself here. You did it. And I just want to just when I think of virtual gifts to leave with people, like what comes to mind is the wild roses. I share a wild rose with every person on this group. They smell good. You can eat them. They're everywhere right now, and they're so full of life. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. And thank you for the gift. Before we move into the song, I just have a little promotional piece that I have to plug, and that is for next week. I hope you can join the UBC Learning Circle, as we will be having some youth panelists. Our future is looking bright in sports. You can go to the UBC Learning Circle webpage to kind of connect with that. So June 24th, do not forget at 10 a.m., we will be having our bright future of Indigenous sports. Our young athletes will be here. June 30th, we also have virtual Doctor of the Day, supporting the patient's journey. So again, www.learningcircle.ubc.ca. All right, so I believe we're going to move into our song shared by Stephanie Nelson as she sings the paddle song. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Stephanie.
Just like to acknowledge one of my other role models. This song was composed by William Wasden Jr. for the Wichinook Nation. It's a Wichinook paddle song, and it's about unity. We will survive being together. And the words translate into me, all of us are traveling around the world, paddling together and singing together. Whoa, whoa, yeah, hey, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, whoa, whoa, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, whoa, whoa, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, whoa, whoa, oh, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah. Hey, hey, la manu la sister wagalis. Hey, hey, la wo awa wa we na Hey, 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 la manu la sister wagalis. Hey, hey, la oh, anawa hey, 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 whoa, ha, whoa, yeah, hey, 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 lama nu la tankala gisla, hey, hey, la whoa, ana, what we know. Hey, 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 lama nu la dankala gisla, hey, hey, la wo na what we na, hey, 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 hey. Whoa, ha, whoa, yeah, hey, 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 whoa, ha, whoa, yeah, hey, 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 lama nu la kusa la gelis, hey, hey, la whoa, ana, wa we na. Hey, 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 lama nu la kusa la gelis, hey, hey, la wo ana wa we na kwisa, hey, 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 whoa, ho, whoa, yeah, hey, 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 whoa, ho, whoa, yeah, hey, 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 ooh, 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 ooh. Oh, love to all you guys. We will be stronger if we unite.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Wishing you all a safe and healthy weekend, and happy Indigenous Peoples Day.